The sky above Anchorus 3 burned in molten reds and silvers, lit by orbital weapons that thundered down from the heavens like the wrath of forgotten gods. Corpsman Raylon Dorn pressed blood-soaked gloves to the chest of a dying soldier, his own breath short inside the cracked seals of his field respirator. The young man's eyes fluttered wide with terror as a final tremor racked his body. Raylon felt the life slip beneath his fingers. "He's gone," Corpsman barked Captain Neural over the roar of gunships and collapsing rubble. "Leave him, we need to fall back." Raylon didn't answer. His hands trembled as he sat back, eyes scanning the inferno around them. The settlement, once considered neutral ground, had been pulverized in less than a day. Intel had promised a recon mission, a minor sweep. They'd been lied to. 3 minutes, Mel shouted, grabbing Raylon's arm. "Get to the evac point or you're dust." "I have to check the south corridor," Raylon said, wrenching free. "There were bunkers down there if anyone's trapped." "Orders are retreat, Dorn, then court-martial me." Raylon snapped, already sprinting through a jagged breach in the wall. His boots pounded over scorched ferrocrete, dodging smoldering wreckage and the charred remains of both human and alien soldiers. The Vernari, the enemy, fought like ghosts, fast, precise, beautiful in their lethality. Their warcraft resembled avian hunters, sweeping wings now shattered across the landscape. The entire operation had collapsed within hours. His neural scanner blinked to life. No human signatures in the immediate range, but then an anomaly, not human, not machine, alive. Raylon's heart thudded. He veered through a twisted corridor of collapsed steel. Smoke stung his eyes as he reached the remains of a collapsed med station. Something shifted under a torn piece of bulkhead. Hand instinctively at his sidearm, Raylon crouched low. "I'm not here to hurt you," he said softly, pulling out the universal translator and flicking it on. Clicking, pulsing sounds echoed from the device, an attempt to mimic the Vernari dialects. Silence, then a faint, pained whimper. He lifted the sheet of plating and froze. A child lay there, orange fur singed and matted with blood. Her vulpine ears twitched faintly, oversized compared to her tiny, elegant face. Her arm was bent unnaturally, and blood had soaked into a shredded tunic stitched with some kind of glowing embroidery. Raylon's mind raced. A Vernari child, female, no older than 5 or 6 by human development, and clearly dying. Raylon's hands moved automatically, training taking over. He slung his rifle over one shoulder and pulled his medical scanner from the side of his pack. The device worked softly as it analyzed the girl's vitals. The results flashed across his heads-up display in a series of blinding alerts. Traumatic brain injury, fractured ulna, internal bleeding, severe burns. "She's in hypovolemic shock," he whispered, biting back a curse. The girl let out a low, broken cry. Raylon knelt beside her and removed a stabilizing injector from his belt, hesitating only a second before pressing it to her side. The hiss of the medicine entering her bloodstream was followed by a slight relaxing of her tense frame. His calm buzzed. "Dorn, damn it, the last evac's lifting in 5. Get your ass in gear or we leave you behind." He muted it without a word. "You're not dying here," he murmured. "Not today." He wrapped her in heat-shielded foil from his field kit and gently secured her to his chest using medic straps designed for critical transport. As he stood, the world seemed to tilt. Explosions boomed in the distance, closer now. The Vernari weren't just defending anymore, they were retaliating. The child opened her eyes. Raylon gasped. Her irises were a glowing molten gold, intelligent, alert, and terrified. Her pupils contracted into sharp vertical slits as she looked up at him, confused and trembling. "It's okay," he whispered, keeping his tone low and steady. "I'm not one of the bastards who did this. I'm getting you out." He sprinted through the ruins, weaving between fire and fallen bodies. As he crested a scorched ridge, the evac site came into view, a Condor-class dropship crouched on glowing struts, its bay doors open as Marines poured aboard. "Dorn," Captain Neural's voice rang out again. "What in the hell, what is that?" Raylon didn't stop. "A survivor," he barked. "That's a Vernari child." Mel lunged forward. "You can't bring that thing aboard." "She's not a thing," Raylon snarled, storming past him. "She's a child and she's mine now." Inside the bay, other medics stepped back in shock as he gently laid her on the nearest table. One of them, Lieutenant Shaw, looked like she might object, but Raylon's expression silenced her. "Someone help me with this field dressing," he said. "Now." A moment passed, then Shaw grabbed gauze and moved to assist. Together they cleaned the worst of the wounds. The girl whimpered once, then fell into unconsciousness. "We're lifting off," the pilot shouted over the intercom. The ship lurched upward, G-forces slamming them into the deck as it tore through the atmosphere. Captain Neural stormed into the medbay, jaw tight. This isn't over, Dorn. When we land, I'm filing charges. Harboring an enemy species during wartime, that's treason. Raylon didn't answer. His eyes never left the child. Her pendant, a metallic band with a pulsing sigil, glowed faintly beneath the blankets. It wasn't just ornamental. She's not just any child, Shaw whispered beside him. That's a royal seal. Raylon's stomach dropped. He looked again at the pendant. It had split open during the treatment, revealing a small holographic image, an adult female Vernari, taller, regal, with the same brilliant orange hue and eyes like fire. The girl was royalty, and he had just made himself the most hunted man in 2 empires. The desert winds howled over the shattered bones of the battlefield. From the top of a jagged bluff, the figure crouched silently, still as the stone beneath her clawed feet. Her orange fur shimmered with subtle hues, blending seamlessly into the rocky terrain. Amber eyes scanned the wreckage below, nostrils flaring as she inhaled. Then she found it faint, nearly lost in the scorched air, her daughter's scent. Track confirmed, she growled. Zira, matron of the Vernari Flameclaw lineage, rose to her full, imposing height. Her battle-worn armor clung to her form like a second skin, adorned with sacred etchings that shimmered with ancient light. A crimson sash fluttered at her hip, the same shade as her ceremonial war paint, now smeared by sweat and smoke. "Any sign of enemy resistance, matron?" asked Commander Rake, his gray-furred snout wrinkled with worry as he stepped beside her. "They fled, but they took her," Zira's voice dropped to a whisper lined with venom, "and I will gut the one who dared." She stepped forward, claws digging into the earth. Her gaze followed a trail, subtle shifts in sand, scorched footprints, the scent of foreign metal and blood. Her daughter was alive. Her mate, their king, was not so lucky. Zira's mind burned with the image of that final stand. Human ships raining fire down upon their sanctuary tree cities. Her mate roaring in defiance as their forces collapsed. The last glimpse she'd caught of her daughter being lifted onto a medical sled as the retreat was sounded. "Shall I dispatch the Iron Talkers?" Rake offered. "They'll sniff the thief out within the hour." "No," Zira growled. "This hunt is mine, my claws, my retribution." She cast off her formal armor, stripping down to the black mesh undersuit favored by silent operatives. Her toned figure remained half-shrouded by a trailing half-cloak woven from silks of heat-resistant flora. Across her back, she sheathed her blade, an obsidian-forged weapon carved with her house sigil. "3 rotations," she said, staring down the trail. "If I do not return by then, assume me fallen, proceed with the purge." Rake hesitated, then saluted with a clenched fist to chest. "As you command, Flameclaw." Zira turned and ran, her form a blur against the twilight. Her muscles rippled beneath taut skin. The wind clawed at her, but she moved like a flame on the breeze, silent, deadly, determined. Hours passed. The trail twisted through ravines, over dunes, and across burned-out encampments. Human corpses littered the path, their blood dried to black, but none bore signs of a child's death. At last, Zira reached what had once been a human staging ground, abandoned now, the wreckage still warm. Inside, the scent thickened. Her daughter had been here, treated, stabilized. Zira's sharp claws traced over a discarded medical wrap stained with her daughter's blood. Human serum, a strange mixture, not meant for Vernari physiology, but not meant to kill either. "Why would you save her?" she whispered into the dust. "What do you want?" Then her ears twitched. In the distance, barely audible, was the sound of rotor blades, a low thrum that shook the sand. Zira sprinted toward it. She reached the ridge just in time to see a human dropship, one of their Condor-class evac vessels, rising into the sky, fleeing the broken planet. A growl tore from her throat. "You have my daughter, human," she whispered to the stars, "and I will not stop until I have her back." Raylon sat on the edge of the medbay cot, head bowed, fingers still stained with orange blood. The hum of the Condor's engines reverberated beneath his boots as the ship ascended through the upper atmosphere. The child, still unconscious, was nestled beneath a sterile blanket in the next bed over. Her breathing had steadied, but her vitals fluctuated dangerously. The universal monitor above her displayed both human and Vernari readings now. Raylon had spliced in several alien data protocols from the medbay archives. Crude, but enough to keep her alive for now. The pendant, still clutched in her small hand, continued to glow faintly. Every time he looked at it, the weight of what he'd done sank deeper into his chest. Not only had he disobeyed a direct order, he'd stolen a Vernari royal, a child, a symbol, maybe even a weapon. He didn't regret it. "You're out of your mind," Shaw muttered beside him. She hadn't left the medbay since liftoff, alternating between helping and watching him like a hawk. "You know that, right?" "She's a child," Raylon murmured. "I couldn't let her die." "You risked your life, your career, for the enemy." Raylon's voice was flat. She was alone, hurt, screaming. Shaw exhaled slowly. "I didn't say you were wrong." Before he could respond, a transmission buzzed through the ship's internal comm. Captain Neural to Specialist Dorn, report to the command deck. Now. Shaw gave him a look. Want me to prep a stretcher for your bruised ego? I'll take my chances. He stood, stretching sore muscles and ignoring the tremor in his legs. 36 hours of non-stop triage work on the surface had left him running on stimulants and instinct. The command deck was quieter than he expected. Mel stood by the forward viewplane, his expression unreadable. Through the glass, Anchorus 3 shrank behind them, just a scarred orb in the void. You going to tell me what this is about? Raylon asked. Mel turned slowly. Sit. Raylon didn't. Suit yourself, the captain said, folding his arms. You brought an alien on board, a royal. If that pendant is what it looks like, that puts us in violation of at least 5 interstellar protocols. Every admiral in the fleet is going to want your head. Then why haven't you spaced me already? Because command hasn't answered our last 3 transmissions. Raylon blinked. What? Neural stepped closer, lowering his voice. The fleet's gone dark, something's happening and I don't like it. The tension crackled between them. Are you saying? I'm saying someone doesn't want that girl alive, Mel growled. And it might not just be the Vernari. Raylon's blood chilled. He thought of the strange weapons he'd seen on the battlefield, the twisted logistics orders that had rerouted them to Anchorus 3 under the guise of peacekeeping. He thought of the pendant. If she's a royal, maybe she knows something, Raylon said slowly. Or maybe someone thinks she does. Neural nodded. Exactly, and now you've made this your problem. Raylon's jaw clenched. Then I'm seeing it through. Good, Mel said after a pause, because she's waking up. The medbay lights dimmed as Raylon re-entered, his boots muffled against the polished floor. The girl stirred beneath the blanket, her small frame trembling, ears twitching with each beep from the monitors. Her golden eyes opened slowly, no longer glazed or disoriented but alert, sharp. She flinched when she saw him. Raylon stopped just beyond arm's reach and slowly knelt. You're safe, he said softly, letting the universal translator at his belt repeat the words in melodic clicks and trills. Her ears twitched again, listening. Her gaze flicked toward the corners of the room to Shaw, who kept her distance pretending not to stare, then back to Raylon. My name's Raylon, I'm a medic human, he placed a hand on his chest. Raylon. The girl watched silently. She didn't speak, but she didn't run either. I found you under a collapsed bunker on the surface. You were injured badly. I did what I could, but you need more than what we have on this ship. Her eyes narrowed as if weighing the truth, then she reached for her pendant. Raylon tensed. Was it a weapon? A beacon? She pressed it gently and the hologram flared to life, a rotating image of the same regal Vernari woman, taller, stronger, draped in battle silks and adorned in ceremonial armor. The pendant's light shifted to a playback, a recording in the Vernari tongue. The translator offered only fragments. Zira, Flameclaw, Sanctuary compromised. Protect Kira. Raylon leaned forward. Kira, is that your name? The child looked at him for a long moment, then nodded. Kira, he repeated, smiling gently, you're safe now. The door opened with a hiss. Captain Neural entered, flanked by 2 armed Marines. Kira immediately shrank back against the medbay wall, tail bristling, a low warning growl vibrating from her throat. Raylon stood sharply. What are you doing? Neural held up a hand. She needs to be moved. Command finally responded. They're diverting us to Outpost Helios for extraction. Raylon's eyes narrowed. Extraction. She'll be transferred to a secure facility. You mean locked up, dissected, interrogated? She's the enemy, Dorn. No, she's a child, a survivor. Mel stepped closer, voice cold. I gave you leeway because I thought you were helping, but this is bigger than us now. We have orders. Kira whimpered. Raylon moved between her and the Marines. If you want her, you'll have to go through me. One of the Marines raised his weapon instinctively. Stand down, Neural snapped. Tension filled the room like static, then a new alert blared from the ship's comm. Proximity alarm, unidentified vessel approaching. Mel's comm chirped. Captain, it's not broadcasting an ID, sleek profile fast, no IFF code, Vernari signature. Raylon's blood ran cold. Kira's mother, he said softly. Neural turned. What? She's coming for her daughter. The ship shuddered suddenly as energy blasts struck the shields. Red lights pulsed overhead. Status report, Neural barked into the comm. Shields down to 72%. They're not trying to destroy us, they're targeting our engines. They want to disable us, Raylon muttered, boarding maneuver. Mel stared at him. You brought this on us. Raylon ignored him, turning back to Kira. We have to move now. Where? Shaw called out as alarm screamed. Anywhere but here, Raylon said, scooping Kira up and rushing toward the aft hatch. Because if her mother finds her in a cage, she'll kill every human on this ship. Zira's sleek interceptor curved beneath the Condor's stern, thrusters flaring orange against the void. Her cockpit flickered with status readouts, shields holding, stealth plating engaged, and grappling talons ready for contact. Her tail lashed once, a silent snarl curling her lips. They have my daughter, she growled. The moment the Condor's stabilizers buckled under the assault, Zira struck. The docking claws latched to the rear maintenance hatch with a satisfying clang. Zira launched herself through the connection tube with all the fury of a storm given flesh. She landed in the shadows of the lower deck, her twin blades already drawn. Alarm klaxons blared. Emergency lights painted the corridor in pulses of red and white. She moved silently. Two human engineers rounded the corner. Zira struck low and fast. The first went down before he could scream. The second fired a sidearm, its pulse shot grazing her shoulder. She didn't flinch. With one clean swipe, he collapsed, groaning but alive. Let them live, let them tell the others what came aboard. She stormed forward, tail flowing behind her like a flame. I will not lose her again. Raylon slammed his palm on the panel outside the escape pod bay, shouting at the flickering interface. Come on, override, override. Kira clung to his shoulder, her claws digging lightly into his vest. She was alert, ears perked, heart pounding against his back. Shaw leaned against the bulkhead behind them, panting. That thing is cutting through our ship like paper. She's not a thing, Raylon snapped. She's Kira's mother and she's angry. Shaw gave him a sideways glance. How do you know she's not here to kill everyone and reclaim her daughter like a trophy? Because if she wanted us all dead, she'd have blown us out of the sky. The terminal beeped, unlocked. Raylon yanked the hatch open. Get in. Shaw hesitated. You sure about this? No, but if we stay, everyone dies. The three of them climbed into the cramped escape pod. Kira curled into Raylon's lap, her breath fast and shallow. He strapped her down as gently as he could, shielding her small form as the pod's engine sputtered to life. A shriek echoed from somewhere deeper in the ship, a cry not of pain but of fury. Zira was near. Go, Shaw shouted, hitting the release. The pod blasted from the Condor's belly, flames licking at its hull as it spiraled into the night, away from the crippled ship. Through the viewport, Raylon saw the interceptor, Zira's, detach from the Condor and pivot in their direction. Damn it, she's following. But then something strange happened. The sleek Vernari ship slowed, engines dimming. A signal flashed on the pod's comm screen. Stand down, I will not harm her. Raylon stared at the message. She knows, he whispered. She's letting us go. On board her ship, Zira stood over the Condor's command deck. Its crew was unconscious, stunned by her claws, not slain. She had found no trace of Kira, only the lingering warmth of the child's scent. She watched the escape pod shrink into the dark. Her claws gripped the hilt of her blade, then released. Protect her, human, she whispered. I'll be watching. The pod touched down hard on the surface of Saros 4, skidding across jagged dunes before embedding in the sand with a metallic groan. Raylon's head snapped forward against his harness. He groaned, unbuckled himself, then immediately turned to Kira. She stirred beneath the restraints, eyes blinking open in the dim orange light of the pod's interior. Her fur clung damp to her forehead and her tail twitched weakly. You okay? He asked, his voice hoarse from the crash. Kira gave a tiny nod. Shaw, sitting opposite, wiped blood from a cut on her brow and checked the environmental readouts. Atmosphere is breathable. Barely. We're not far from a decommissioned research outpost. I saw it during descent. Raylon scooped Kira into his arms and pushed open the hatch. Blistering desert wind roared in, throwing grit into his face and howling like a hungry beast. The sky above was a burnt gold, twin suns hanging low like molten coins. They trudged forward, Raylon carrying Kira and Shaw scouting ahead. The sand shifted treacherously beneath their feet, each step a struggle. By the time they reached the outpost, half buried, its antenna cracked and doors rusted, the light was fading fast. Shaw slammed her shoulder into the door control panel. Sparks flew, then the hatch opened. Inside, the facility was dark and dry, its walls covered in dust and cracked screens. Raylon gently laid Kira down on a foam-padded med table and rifled through old storage bins. A miracle, spare power cells and basic medical supplies still sealed. He plugged them into the console and brought the terminal back to life. Diagnostics blinked on, illuminating the chamber in a soft glow. She's stable, he said with relief, scanning her vitals. Still needs more advanced care, but this buys us time. Shaw found a stash of rations and a water recycler. Looks like the science team here bilayed fast. Most of this is still usable. What do we do now? We survive, Raylan said, long enough to figure out who wants her dead and why. That night, as the two humans camped in a circle of emergency lamps and dust-caked bedding, Kira lay nearby, wrapped in thermal blankets. And just beyond the ridge unseen, a set of glowing amber eyes watched from the shadows. Zira crouched beneath a stone outcropping, her orange fur muted by a chameleon weave woven into her cloak. She'd followed the pod down, observed the landing. She could have stormed the outpost, blades drawn. She didn't. Instead, she watched. The human had kept his word. He'd risked everything, and now he protected her child better than many Vernari would have. Zira's claws scraped against stone. She wasn't sure what that meant yet, but she would find out. The stars above Saros 4 shimmered like cold fire, undisturbed by the chaos of the galaxy below. Inside the outpost, Raylan sat beside Kira's makeshift bed, eyes half-lidded, fighting exhaustion. Her small hand had curled around his during sleep, claws gently resting against his palm. Every so often, her ears twitched at distant sounds, the wind outside, the low hum of the power cells, her dreams. He didn't know what she dreamed about. He hoped it wasn't war. Shaw snored quietly on the other side of the room, curled in a survival blanket. A beacon transmitter they'd salvaged from the outpost remained offline. They couldn't risk broadcasting their position, not yet, not with Vernari warships and whatever command structure Raylan had just betrayed, both hunting for them. As he closed his eyes, he didn't hear the silent hiss of the outer hatch opening. Didn't hear the footsteps slow and deliberate. Didn't see the shadow that drifted through the corridor like a specter of vengeance. But Kira did. Her eyes snapped open, she tensed then relaxed. She recognized the scent. Raylan stirred a moment too late. When he turned, the figure was already there. Zira stood at the edge of the room like something carved from flame and steel. Her tall frame was imposing, her orange fur reflecting the light like polished copper. Her cloak fell away as she stepped forward, revealing sleek armor beneath and a curved blade still sheathed across her back. Kira didn't recoil, she sat up, reaching toward the woman. Mother. The translator repeated it with a slight warble, but the meaning was unmistakable. Raylan didn't reach for a weapon, he didn't speak, he didn't even breathe. Zira moved toward Kira and knelt. She reached out a clawed hand, hesitated, then pulled the child into a tight embrace. For a long moment, nothing else existed in the room but the sound of soft Vernari murmurs. When they parted, Zira stood slowly and turned her eyes on Raylan. The warmth vanished. What replaced it was fire. You took her, she said. The translator echoed her words in clipped, synthetic syllables. You stole my blood. I saved her, Raylan said. He rose but kept his hands low. She would have died, your people left her behind. I didn't, you bombed our cities, slaughtered our kin. You humans burned the ancient forests of Murakai, and your people ambushed our envoys, executed surrendering soldiers. I watched them gut my commander like livestock. They stared at each other, the weight of dead worlds between them. Shaw stirred behind them, groggy. Ray, what the hell's going on? Don't move, he warned without looking back. Zira's blade remained sheathed, but her claws tapped against her thigh, a rhythm of restraint. I didn't take her to harm her, Raylan said. I've given her medicine, shelter, protection. I've stayed ahead of both our militaries to keep her safe. Zira stepped closer, eyes narrowing. Why? Raylan didn't answer right away. Then, because she reminded me of my sister. Zira blinked, caught off guard. She died in a blast during the first week of the war, he continued. A hospital that was supposed to be neutral, no survivors, and no one cared, not really, not command, not politicians, just another number. His voice lowered. I swore no more kids would die on my watch. Human Vernari doesn't matter. Zira looked at Kira again. The girl sat quietly on the bed, tail curled around her legs. She watched them both, her expression unreadable. Zira sighed. You are reckless human, she said, but not a liar. Raylan relaxed only slightly. I am Zira of the Flameclaw lineage, she said, voice smooth and sharp, and I do not forget debts or truth. She turned toward the outpost entrance. You will come with me, both of you, there are things you must see. The dawn over Saros 4 cast long amber rays through the broken skylights of the outpost, illuminating dust motes that danced in the still air. Zira stood tall at the edge of the chamber, silhouetted by the rising suns. Her form was regal and alien, yet unmistakably maternal as she watched Kira gather her things with quiet obedience. Raylan had packed quickly. He still didn't know if Zira intended to kill him or protect him, but Kira trusted her, and after what he'd seen on Anchorus 3, he trusted Kira. Shaw, though, wasn't so sure. You're just going to go with her, she hissed, pulling Raylan aside near the storage racks. After everything she said after she stormed our ship. She could have killed us 10 times already, Raylan replied. She didn't. Shaw folded her arms. You think she's our friend now? I think, Raylan said, glancing toward Kira. She's a mother who lost everything and is doing what she thinks is right, just like us. Zira turned to them, expression unreadable. There's an ancient ruin 2 days from here. Pre-Union, pre-war, my ancestors once called it Vorishkai. Raylan tilted his head. That name sounds familiar. It was once a joint Vernari human colony. Shaw blinked. Impossible. The first recorded contact between our species was 73 years ago. Zira's ears flicked in annoyance. History is written by survivors and rewritten by liars. She held up a small triangular object crystalline with a pulsing orange core. This is a memory shard from the Flameclaw archives. It shows things your leaders would have you forget. Raylan studied it. You want us to go there. Why? Because you carry more than a child now, Zira said. You carry truth, and truth has enemies. They set out before the twin suns reached their peak. Zira walked at the front, cloak billowing, a spear-like staff slung over one shoulder. Kira rode lightly on Raylan's back, tail draped lazily around his side, ears twitching at the sounds of distant creatures in the sand. The desert was alive with heat ghosts and whispering winds. Great bones of forgotten titans jutted from the sand, half-buried skeletons of skyships and siege crawlers lost to ancient battles both sides no longer taught. Zira guided them through a canyon of black stone, the walls carved with ancient symbols. Raylan slowed, brushing dust from one of the etchings. Human letters, Vernari glyphs, side by side. What is this place? He asked. Proof, Zira said, voice low, that there was peace once, and someone destroyed it. They made camp inside a collapsed dome, once a learning chamber, now home to silence and sand. Raylan and Shaw took turns sleeping. Zira sat watch all night, her blade across her knees. At dawn, Kira stirred and approached her mother. Zira opened her arms silently and Kira nestled against her. Raylan awoke to see them together, framed by the warm glow of morning light. And for the first time since the war began, he felt something like hope. But the illusion didn't last long. A crackle echoed across the canyon. Zira's ears perked instantly. What was that? Shaw whispered, drawing her sidearm. Zira sniffed the air, then growled. We're being followed. Vernari, Raylan asked. She shook her head. Worse. Moments later, a shadow passed over the ridge. Then another. Sleek, black-armored figures crept down the canyon walls, weapons drawn. Their insignia was neither human nor Vernari. Mercenaries, Shaw said, private warhawks.